Really glad to have you. Hi there, this is Kellen. Really glad to have you here on this interview today in the Results with Kellen series. Just excited that you've made time to come and listen. So, I always get asked the question, Kellen, how come you have made a life out of helping people get results? And it always makes me reflect on my life journey. And, I found that my whole ever since I've been young, my joy and passion have come from helping people achieve dreams. And examples: as a freshman in college, I was already tutoring calculus. I started teaching piano lessons when I was 17, and all through my corporate career and all of the amazing things that I had the opportunity to do in both the U.S. and Canada were all centered around helping people achieve amazing results, helping them do the things they couldn't imagine that they could do. So out of that came this series, Results with Kellen, so that I could bring a whole bunch of people together that are experts at getting results and bring them to you so that you would have the opportunity to get that kind of help and achieve those kind of amazing results in your life. Today is no exception. Today we have a great guest, and in order for you to get the most out of this interview, I want you to do a couple things just before we start. So the first thing I want you to do is type in your browser www.resultswithkellen.com/PassionQuest, PassionQuest. That will bring you to our speaker page for today, and you'll know that you're on the right page when you see John C. Robinson's picture on that page. Now, there's a lot of things you could do on that page, but what I want you to do first, and what you need to do, is scroll down to where the comment section is, because in that comment section you'll be able to type things that John teaches us and things that you think of, and even questions that you might have, and so you can participate and get more out of today's interview. The second thing is exciting, and that is John has brought a free gift today for you, just for being here on this interview, and that's really exciting. I will talk more about that free gift later, but I just wanted you to know that it was coming. So now I'd like to introduce our guest. Our guest today is John C. Robinson, and his bio is really impressive. So I'm going to read just a little bit of this. John C. Robinson is a success coach for entrepreneurial authors, award-winning Amazon best-selling author, speaker, and world-recognized expert on successfully coaching businesses, successfully establishing a business in a niche market. Now, we've all heard of the niche market. He's an expert at that. He's published dozens of titles and sold hundreds of thousands of books in different areas. He's also the founder of Passion Quest Technologies, LLC, and truly practices what he preaches, making a living doing things that he's passionate about. He has been writing for 38 years and enjoys helping entrepreneurs create multiple streams of income, something exciting for all of us, from information products like books, webinars, and professional speaking, and also CDs. John, really glad to welcome you to our interview today.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and I'm glad to be here.
So obviously everybody's going to want to get to know you with all that glorious intro, so that's fantastic. So take a few minutes now and introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey, where you've been, what you've done, and ultimately how you came to be the person you are today, helping entrepreneurs like you do.
Absolutely. I think if I had to put my finger on it, my journey started way back in high school. That's why we can go back to 39 years or 38 years and chart how long I've been writing. But I've always been in create mode all of my life. I've always loved creating things. And in high school, one of the things that I wanted to create was stories, books, and things like that. And so I actually began writing at the age of 15. And as I look back upon it, one of the things that I realized is that it was the age of 18 when I was actually standing at a bookshelf in a bookstore, contemplating buying a few books. I asked myself a very important question. It was very simple. Why can't I have my book on that bookshelf? And I answered it in the same moment. Well, I have to write it. And the very next day, I began writing that book. And a few years later, one day I went into Barnes & Noble, and there it was. That was my book on the bookshelf, just as I had envisioned it.
That's a spectacular story, both from a motivational standpoint and about somebody realizing their dream, which of course is one of the results that we're looking for. You know, if you're like me, you've probably spent a lot of time, like you did there, thinking about life's important questions. How do I get the most out of life? How do I build the life I want? And then sometimes, how come this all seems so hard? And is there some kind of secret formula that other people know that I don't? And sometimes it seems so confusing. So today, you're coming to talk about something called webinars. And so maybe we've got a lot of listeners, or a few, that don't really know what those are. So to start with, can you tell the listeners here what a webinar is and how you use them to educate people, deliver value, and make some money?
Okay, well, I think when we think of webinars, what we want to think of is kind of step back a little bit and ask ourselves, everybody wants to make money online. And a webinar is like an online presentation. So what we do with webinars is we help ourselves to turn our virtual presentations into cash machines. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Now, if I were to actually give you a definition, and all of you who are listening to this call, this is the time that you want to take out your pencil, your pen, and have some paper ready, get a blank sheet. But if we were to give a formal definition for a webinar, it would be a workshop or a lecture delivered over the internet. That's the basic definition. A workshop or lecture delivered over the internet. How we do that can be a lot of fun. We can do it as a one-way webcast where you're just talking to the audience, or it can be a two-way participation where the audience is actually interacting with you at the same time. So it can be a lot of fun.
All right, well, that's great. So we'll just start from the idea that a webinar is some version of a presentation that you give online where you're presenting something or teaching something or giving some kind of value, and you do it on the internet. That work?
That works.
Perfect. So you're right. People are looking for different ways all over the place to make money on the internet, especially given, you know, the economic upturn, downturn, all of the dance that we've had in the last half a dozen years. So a question that you might get all the time, and that I know I hear when people think about making money online, is this: in the economy like it is, with all of the ups and downs, is it really possible, one, to make a living online and using this webinar approach with the definition that you've just given? Is that something that we really can do?
Absolutely. I'm thinking back to, we've had many of the clients come through Webinar Graduate School. One client sticks out in my mind because when he came to us, he had never, ever done a webinar. And so he came to me around January and said, John, I need to do a webinar. And so I held a couple sessions with him, helped him to go through the material at Webinar Graduate School, and he felt like, okay, now that I spent about 30 minutes with you, I think I'm set. I think it was around March he delivered his very first webinar, and I can't remember the numbers right now, but they were quite impressive. It was like 600, 700 people registered for the webinar. About 300 of those people showed up for the webinar, which is a great show rate. And about 70 to 90 people actually made a purchase that night right on the spot. So this is a guy that never did a webinar before, and all he did was follow what I told him to do.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Show up in January, a greenie, and then by March making a move.
Yeah.
Now, is this, you know, things change. Things are changing really fast on the internet, and with technology changing, is this still a good time to use this technology?
It's not only a good time, it's probably even better now, because we can not only do webinar with all the traditional webinar software solutions that are out there, but we can now take advantage of Google Hangouts, which makes webinars even more accessible to every business owner. There's really no business owner out there that, number one, can't use a webinar. I'm still challenged to find a business that can't benefit from using a webinar. But also, number two, there's really no excuse not to use them now because Google Hangouts makes it so accessible and so easy to start doing it.
Well, that's really encouraging. So I heard you say something that made me want to elaborate a little bit on this question. A lot of times people think like only internet marketers or, marketing some kind of only info products are the ones that make money online, and most of them are making money by telling people how to make money, and the sort of circular argument, and it gets this sort of discredited feeling. But you said something about businesses. There's no reason for businesses not to be using this. So that makes me think of bricks and mortar and other kinds of businesses. Are you saying that regular businesses should be thinking about and using this kind of technology? And you're nodding already, and people can't see that. But tell me why then. You say yes, and then tell me how come.
Yeah, well, I live in the business coaching world by walking the truth. And I walk my talk. When you look at the name of my company, Passion Quest Technologies, it's all about what I've done in my life. I have lived and worked in my passion for nearly 4 decades. So obviously, what is my passion? My passion is bird watching and the study of nature and the outdoors. This is what I've done all of my life. And about 25 years ago, I decided to create a business around my passion, and specifically I started writing books about birds and nature and the outdoors, and I've sold hundreds of thousands of copies of those books, turned it into just a great opportunity with everything that I'm doing, and that's how I became a #1 best-selling author, is by following that path. But at the core, I continue to work in my passion and show people how I did it in my niche market of bird watching and how they can do it in their own niche market. Now, take bird watching as an example. This is a niche that there's about 82 to 83 million people who watch birds in the United States alone. I'm not counting Canada, and I'm not counting Great Britain, where there's a lot more.
Wow, that's a lot of people. That's a big number.
Yeah, it's a huge number, and this is an example of why anyone who's on this call, you should be asking yourself, how does John know there's 83 million people who do this? Well, it's all about the research that you have to do about your market. So I encourage all of you to just kind of make a little note on your notepad. I got to do research about my market. I need to know about my market. Now, having said that, despite the fact that there's all these people who watch birds, very few individuals in my niche are using webinars. And most of the consumers in my niche are not used to businesses delivering webinars to them. But what I did with my team is a few years ago, we actually took the whole concept of webinars, we took it right into this niche, to a niche where other businesses weren't doing webinars, consumers weren't used to doing webinars, and we did a webinar series right with this market. And it was so warmly received. We had it was a 6-week webinar, and each week we had dozens and dozens of more people joining just by word of mouth. And people were buying our product on the back end, which is ultimately why you're doing webinars. So if you can take webinar technology into a market that has nothing to do with making money, it has to do with enjoying nature, and you can show webinars to a consumer base that hasn't had any experience watching webinars, and even though they've had no experience watching webinars, they're still going to buy your product. I would say, again, there's really no excuse for any business not to be doing webinars these days.
So there's a couple of really important things that struck me there, and that was the whole myth of the only way you make money online is to talk about making money. You addressed that really directly, and you said, bird watching, right? I mean, I'm not one of the 82 million, and so to me, bird watching is like, oh, yawn, boring, and so no trouble for those that love it to pieces. But it's really impressive, quite frankly, that you would take something like that in something that's completely unrelated to what you would normally think about when you think about internet businesses, multi-level marketing and other kinds of things, and introduce this technology. So the first thing you said is, it doesn't seem to matter, in your experience, what the what the niche is. And so what I'm going to ask a question in a minute, and that is, besides bird watching in your client base, what other interesting niches have you either helped people do or help people create webinar series in and made a made them begin to be successful in any degree? In fact, let's just do that question right now. I had another one, but I'll save it. So what other things besides bird watching have you helped clients do in, and I ask this by way of encouragement to those listeners that are, again, thinking about, will mine work?
Yeah. Well, again, the gentleman that I worked with, who I helped, who came to me in January and delivered his first webinar in March, he was in the business of not only writing books, but helping other people write books as well. And so I was helping him connect and become more relevant to his audience. I've helped virtual assistants do webinars. So if you're a woman or a man who is in the business of offering virtual assistant services to other people, one of the ways that you can attract clients to what you're doing is by delivering a webinar. I've helped people who are in the green cleaning business, people who have a business around cleaning houses but only using green technology. I've helped them do webinars. These are just some examples of the people that I've worked with.
So again, this is something that I want to emphasize your answer, because you've told me that in someone that's a virtual assistant is doing webinars. I would have thought of a virtual assistant as somebody helping somebody else do a webinar as opposed to doing them. So them doing a webinar to advertise and market their services, and green cleaning and other things. So basically, offline businesses really are missing the boat if they're not taking advantage of some of these technologies.
Oh yeah, and take a look at the businesses that I've done. In the time when people were doing, and they still are doing, a lot of travel, we offered bird watching and natural history tours all over the world. And we would take people on bird watching safaris to South Africa. Well, how did we do that? Well, one of the ways we did it to market that opportunity was to do webinars to our list. And people would show up, and we would have my business partner from South Africa with his South African accent talking about going to South Africa, and we would have pictures of all the animals that you could see there, all the birds that you could see there. This visual display of the experience that you're going to have is really what makes webinars so successful, because people can not only hear what you're saying, but they can see it, and they can almost put themselves in that environment, and that's what makes webinars so powerful. If I had the opportunity to do a webinar or a teleseminar, if you ask me 100 times, I would say I'm going to do the webinar. That's how powerful I think webinars are.
So you've made a distinction there by having the pictures, and now even you mentioned earlier the Google Hangout with the video, which is what we're doing today. So the next question I had is that, and that is video. YouTube recently has surpassed Google as the largest search engine in the world. More people Google stuff on YouTube now than on Google, right? And so video seems to be taking over the world. And I want you to describe how that fits into this process that you're talking about. How does video integrate more into making this more successful and even more powerful, I guess, is what it felt like you were saying. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's the initial webinar that you do. If you're doing live webinars, the initial webinar that you do, people can see it and can experience you live on the call. Now, having done that, they may want to watch a replay of the webinar, but then you also have to think about the people that couldn't make it to the live webinar. What about them? Well, they can watch a replay as well. So most good traditional webinar technology solutions do give you the ability to make a recording of the webinar that you do so that you can offer it as a replay to your audiences later. And the beauty about Google Hangouts is that process that I just talked about, which is do a webinar with traditional webinar technology, and then make the recording available. It takes a little time to get the recording ready because you got to have video editing software, you got to do things in the background. So you might be working on it for an hour or two, maybe sometimes more, before it gets up on the internet. With Google Hangouts, again, you can do a live webinar, and then as soon as you're done, because it's integrated with YouTube, it is on the web for people to watch in an instant almost. As soon as your Hangout is done, people can watch it. So it's truly amazing where the technology is leading us now. It's making it easier for us to do what we need to do, and the relationship between Google and YouTube is just, it's perfect for what it is that we're trying to make work here.
Wow, sounds like a great confluence of technology. So now let's get to the people doing this. One of the things I hear as a coach, and I'm sure that you do too, is the fear of being in public, fear of being in front of people, fear of being looking stupid or whatever it is, fear of not doing it right, and so that's one thing, that just the general fear, and the other one is not any experience. I may be really good at what I do, but I don't really have much experience teaching in this way. And so I want you to answer, I guess, two questions. One is, what if I don't have any experience teaching, and on top of that, I'm afraid of showing up, and people are gonna, think I'm whatever, got warts on my, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. What do you do with people that are either don't have any experience teaching much, or are afraid to death of being heard, or worse yet, heard and seen?
Yeah, absolutely. My entire team that has worked in this field of doing webinars for years now, we've seen almost every fear that's out there, but it always amazes us. Each year we hear a new one. But the traditional list is, I'm afraid of public speaking, or I'm afraid of the technology. I don't know how to use the technology, and I'm afraid everything's going to go wrong. Or what if people show up on my webinar? What do I do then? And then the exact opposite of that is, what if no one shows up to my webinar? What do I do at that point? And even if people did show up, what do I tell them? How do I work with them? What's the process? It just goes on and on. There's so many excuses out there, and one of the things that we try to help people understand is that you and I can do we can interview dozens of clients every day for the next 30 days and ask them why they might be afraid of doing webinars. And for the next 30 days, we might be able to assemble 2,000 to 3,000 things that people are afraid of. And I guarantee you, I can find a way to overcome every one of them.
Well, that's an impressive claim. So you said a couple of things that I wanted to ask about that I know I've heard, and I know you've heard a bunch of times. What if I throw a party and nobody comes? So what if I hold a webinar? You told the example of the guy earlier. It started in January, and by March, he had 600 people registered. That's phenomenal. What if someone gets all ready and they get all dressed up for the party and nobody comes? What do you tell them to do then, both at the moment and to dress up their wounded psyche?
Well, there's a couple things that we teach, but the first thing goes back to that previous question that you asked, is why is it important to have video? And video is not important just because you can have a replay of your webinar, but it's important because you now have a way of repurposing that content into so many different other products and services that you can offer later on in your business. So now we come back to the last question that you just asked. You've scheduled a webinar, you have high hopes, you're expecting 300 people to be on the webinar, and the hour shows up when you're about to deliver. You go in and you look to see how many people are registered, and there's 0. What do you do? Well, most people think, oh my gosh, this is not working. I'm not going to do it, and they'll just walk away. But what we coach people on is how to build yourself up on the inside, how to create that self-image of you as a successful entrepreneur. And you have to have the biggest, boldest vision of yourself at that point. And you go on and you deliver that webinar as if there's 100 to 200 or 300 people on there. You just deliver it as if those people were there, because your presentation's already there. You might as well do it. And what this does is it not only gives you something that you can repurpose later, you can drive more traffic to it later, But what it also does is it really shows you that it shows your customers that you're accountable, that you do what you say you're going to do. And when your consumer base is seeing that you're doing a webinar and then they see that you did it and you made it available, they begin to see you as a successful person because they see you doing what you promised to do.
Well, that's really important. I guess both those answers are good. One is to build yourself up as a successful entrepreneur, and I guess that centers around really having something of value. And I'm assuming, obviously, that somebody does if they're trying to make a business out of it. I know I certainly do, and you do, for 82 million people. So that's a fantastic thing. The other thing is that integrity piece of doing what you say you're going to do. That's so important both for your customer base and internally, because if you tell yourself you're going to do something and you continually don't, then you create a pattern of not fulfilling your word to yourself. So this brought up two more things for me. One is, you also said sometimes people are afraid or get worried when people do show up. So let's go to the other end. Let's suppose you're ready to do it, you're nervous about it, and 50 people or 100 people show up, and you know it.
Yeah.
What do you tell people then?
So what you want to do then at that point is you want to realize that if something like that happens, where now people are there, you will reap the benefits of one word. And for everyone that's on this call right now, go back to your notepad and write this down. The word is very simple. It's called practice. You want to practice the delivery of your webinar enough times so that when you do it live, it flows like a well-oiled engine. And so when people do show up, you're going to be ready. You're going to be prepared. And practice makes perfect.
That's fantastic. So I had one additional question, and I love the practice part.
Let me add on to that, because I really need to think about that. And I've got something else that I think would be just so part of that answer. And that is this. There's a lot of people out there, as you say, who are really afraid of speaking, really afraid of public speaking. They fear public speaking more than they fear death. You know, that's a saying that's out there all over the world. And just recognize one thing, and that is this. I'm a keynote speaker. I fly all over the world. People pay me thousands of dollars to get up on stage and do what I do. What most people don't realize, because I've created Webinar Graduate School, because I do all these keynote speeches, most people don't realize is that when I was in the 3rd grade, I stuttered on every word. I couldn't finish a sentence. And if there's anyone in the room, if there's anyone on this hangout right now that should be afraid of speaking, it should be me. But what I've done is I've worked with my self-image to such an extent that I have such a huge belief in myself that you can't drag me off. I mean, you have to literally drag me off the stage, because I love being on the stage now. And when I think about the kid that I was when I was 15 and I tried to say something and that's what I sounded like, and now people hear me speaking now, it's a huge difference. And it's all about the self-image. So that's one of the things that we work with when we work with our clients, is we help them improve their self-image. We take them wherever they are, and we help build them and improve them so that they can do webinars at such a high level, just like I'm doing now.
So that's fantastic. So there's one other question that comes to mind, and it's not on the self-image part. You've done a great job talking about that, and I agree as a coach that is so important, because what we can and can't do always starts in our minds, and that determines half the war right there. You've talked a number of times about repurposing.
Sure.
You mentioned do it anyway, even if nobody's there, because you can repurpose it. And you mentioned it a couple of different times earlier. Could you define that word first, and then maybe give some examples of how you might repurpose a webinar that you did where you gave a party and nobody showed, but you did it anyway, like there was 100 people?
Yeah. The repurposing is what we call the multiple streams of revenue, and it's one of the major focus areas of my business. When I work with clients, that is always part of my discussion as I work with them, is how do you take what it is that you're doing and create multiple streams of revenue around that. And the easiest and best way that I can do this is talk about what we call information products. Most people, when they hear the word information product, they think of a book. But what I want you to do is I want you to write these two words down, information product, and then in parentheses, I want you to write, they are more than just books. So an information product can be almost anything that you can think of. It can be a book, it can be an ebook, it can be a teleseminar, a webinar, a Google Hangout, a YouTube video. It could be a music CD, it could be a DVD, and we can go on and on. And what you really have to understand is that when we publish an information product, like a book, we don't make money from the book as much as we make money because of the book. And so what is a webinar? A webinar is where we take our intellectual property and we put it out there for everyone to see. Now we've created a video, and people can buy that video if you're selling the replay of that webinar. But then we can take part of that video and repurpose it into a coaching program, or maybe into an audio CD set that we're going to sell, or maybe we'll do a weekend workshop, or maybe we'll do something else. Maybe we'll have an online home study course that people can purchase from us that's inside a membership area. There's two purchases right there. Sign up for the membership area and then purchase the home study course. So there's so many ways that you can just take a single thing that you do and make multiple streams of revenue around that.
Well, thank you. That's a great answer. So for those of you that joined in late, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. If you're not already on John's speaker page, you need to go there now because that's the way you'll get the most out of the interview. And so that is www.resultswithkellen.com/PassionQuest, PassionQuest. You'll know you're on the right page when you see the picture of our guest today, John C. Robinson. Now, I spoke earlier about a free gift that John is offering today just for being on the webinar, or being on this interview. I'm sorry, we're talking about webinars and I call everything one now. Just for being on this interview. And so that free gift is called How to Make the Sale. I know myself and many of clients that I've had have lamented, I guess, about having clients or having prospects and talking to them all the time, and then at the end of the day, not closing the deal and not making the sale. So this free gift is called How to Make the Sale. John, in a sentence or two, could you describe what people are going to get in this free gift, How to Make the Sale?
What they're going to get as part of this free gift is to really begin to leverage the what I call the 11th hour. And what you want to think about is the process from bringing a new prospect into your marketing funnel, working with them to the point where they're going to make that first purchase from you. You get them all the way up to the point where you're finally going to have them take out their credit card and buy your product or service. And a lot of times entrepreneurs can do a good job all the way through that process, and then they get to the point where they ask for the cash, and that's where they stumble and fall. And all that work you did to get that prospect literally at the doorstep, and then you don't finish it, and they don't purchase it. So what we do with How to Make the Sale is we teach you the words that you're going to use and the different situations when you're going to use certain types of words with different types of clients. So that when you do get to that point, you're now prepared and you're ready to ask for the cash, and you know the process of how to go about doing it. So that's what we do with that. And I've taken many of my own examples and put them in there and kind of share with the people who are listening to this recording why and how I do what I do.
I personally know a lot of people that charge a lot of money to teach people how to close sales. And so I'm really grateful for our listeners, the generosity of the gift that you're offering for free. Friends, I'm going to tell you in just a minute how to get a hold of that free gift. This free thank you gift just for listening today. But right now, I want you to take a look at the special offer. So find the special offer button on John's page. It's big and it's orange, and you can't miss it. So click on that special offer button, and that will take you to the special offer page. You know that you will know that you're on the right page when you see John C. Robinson's Webinar Graduate School, which is what we've been talking about today. So on this page, you'll be able to read all about the exclusive offer that John's put together just for us here on this page today. John, your package is called John C. Robinson's Webinar Graduate School, and you've done a great job describing all kinds of stuff about it. So can you take 2 or 3 sentences here and describe what people are going to get in this John C. Robinson's Webinar Graduate School special offer that you've put together for us today?
Absolutely, yeah. Basically, what you'll get is you'll get access to the 4-module course that we've put together for you, and we constantly update that. So by the time that you've used all of this, you might see a lot of additional content out there. I mean, the whole purpose of Webinar Graduate School is to keep it current for our audience. But the core product is 4 basic modules that are going to teach you everything you need to know about how to do webinars. And this will walk you through from A to Z of what it is that you need to do. It'll give you the blueprint for doing webinars. It'll help you learn the sequence of how you do them, what to say when you're doing them, and how to put them together, the team you need behind you, and most importantly, how to create irresistible value and how to do your marketing research so that you know exactly all the things you need to know about your customer before you start marketing to them.
Well, that's, again, I took a look at the special offer page, and in preparing it with you, I'm again really impressed. I mean, the value of this offer, the value of this course, the number of people that you've helped turn their passion into profits, and especially the coaching that you're offering with this is an amazing value. So I really want to compliment you again on your generosity. Friends, if you'd like to take John up on his special offer at this amazing, exclusive 90% discount, scroll up to the top of the page and click on the Add to Cart button. The rest is easy. Just fill in the form and click the Submit button, and you'll be there. So, John, I have some more questions here about just about how some of this process works after someone takes advantage of this special offer. So I'm sure that you hear this all the time, but someone would hear you and they would be impressed and they would say, wow, you know, maybe I can do this, and they would sort of get all excited. And then they think, oh, and then they think about life setting in and everything else, and they would come back to you and say, John, this sounds really good, but you know, just how do I get started?
Well, there's going to be 2 ways to do that. I mean, obviously, if you're the kind of person that loves to read a user manual, and I know the type. Usually when you buy a car, you get the car home and you take that huge user manual out of the glove compartment, you bring it in and you start reading that for the next 5 days right before you go to bed at night. If you're the type of person like that, then you're probably going to want to just follow everything that we have out there at Webinar Graduate School, take a deep dive into the core modules and just begin doing everything that we teach you how to do. But there's another large segment of the audience that likes the process of someone who knows a lot about a certain topic to walk alongside of them. And so we have a done with you component of this offering, which is every month we're going to be doing a live webinar. And every one of you who takes advantage of the special offer will get invited to the live webinar. You'll have the ability to send your questions in ahead of time, and at that point you'll be able to take advantage of this coaching that we're going to do in a live format where I'll be answering as many of the questions as possible during these live webinars that we're going to do once a month. So if you're that type of person, meaning you don't get into the details of the user manual, but you just want to work with the person who's going to show you how to do it, you'll have that option too, or you can do both. So I think it's going to be pretty easy, no matter which side of the fence that you're coming from, to really take this course and make something work with it.
Well, that's great. So I'm going to go back to something that you talked about being more terrifying than death, which is the fear of public speaking. And I always think of, the fear of public speaking is one thing, but after you give a keynote speech, if it is terrible and they throw tomatoes at you, at least you can leave the room and it's over. But if you do a video or something like that and put it on YouTube and it's awful, I mean, that's like forever, right? The internet's in ink. So I think fear of video might even magnify that. But what specifically, you talked about being young and being afraid and overcoming that. You talked about helping people. What specifically do you tell people that say, I'm just afraid of what I look like on camera?
Okay. Well, part of it, again, is the practice piece. But when we work with someone like that, we really begin to take a deep dive into specific exercises that start out with you practicing in front of a mirror, and then practicing in front of some friends, and then practicing in front of what we call a mastermind group. And we actually force you to go out and find people in your community who you're going to practice this with. And it could be someone that either in your city, or it could be someone halfway across the country, because you can still do this by Skype. But you're going to continue practicing this until it becomes second nature. And what I want you to think about is something like this. If you think of a time when you got in front of a friend and you just started having a conversation about how fun life is and all the experiences that are going around that, just think about how easy those conversations are, how easy it is for you to talk to your friends. This is what the practicing does, is it allows you to get to the point where you're making your online presentations that easy. And so that's the practice part of it. And then the self-image part of it is the other piece. And this is where we help people create the self-image that allows them to see themselves already in possession of their goal. So those are the two things that we work with there.
Well, that's great. I see my video's frozen here, so I have one more question, and I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'm going to get this question going, and then I'm going to fix my video. So sorry that my video is frozen. Let's say I'm trying to make this work. I think it's great. I've got all the usual fears and worries. Can you walk me through, say, maybe the first week of using this system?
Yeah, the first week of using the system is going to be very easy. There's a video that we have already queued up for you, and we're going to cover the basic concept around Webinar Graduate School, introduce you to what webinars are, and kind of talk about why we should be using them. And I just want to list a few things that I think are going to be critical as part of that process, because when we think about webinars, we think of a online presentation that we're going to give. What we really don't do is understand why we would want to do these online presentations. And so let me just give you a couple examples here. When we think about webinars, we are really talking about something that allows you to have a global reach, meaning that you're not just reaching the consumers in your local city or your local region, but you can basically go anywhere in the world with webinars. And I've had clients all over the world watching mine. You also have the ability to make your webinars available 24/7. So even though you might do them live, once you put the replay up there, they can continue to work for you again and again and again for months, if not years, thereafter. Another thing that I've been teaching a lot right now is something that I've done not only for other people but for myself. But webinars is really a way that you can create a 5-figure payday. And so we kind of walk people through in the very first week why it's so important to do the marketing and customer research. You have to know your customer, you have to know your market in order to become relevant to them. And we actually give you everything you need to know about how to do that research so that you're prepared to have a very effective marketing campaign as you begin to reach out. And so those are just some of the things that you'll learn within that first week. And as with all of the modules, we actually give you homework assignments that we ask you to do so that you can begin, working towards your goal. And what this first week is going to do is it's going to force you to choose a date. And again, if you're listening to this and watching this recording right now, I want you to write that down. Establishing a date for my first webinar, and I'm speaking as if I'm you, establishing a date for my first webinar is one of my top priorities, because until you establish that date, this idea that you have of doing a webinar will always just be an idea, just something you're going to do in the future. But once you put a date on it, now you have the opportunity to back into a plan that's going to make that date work. And this is what creates the urgency, the excitement, and the fun of doing webinars.
Well, thank you. That's a fantastically comprehensive answer, and I really appreciate you doing that. All right, so I've got my little video thing solved. I want to let you know by now, that was a great walkthrough, actually, because I could follow exactly what I would be doing that first week, and that's certainly a question that I have. By now, you will have seen John's special offer. If you haven't been to that page, so here's the link, www.resultswithkellen.com/PassionQuest, PASSIONQUEST, and then find the big orange special offer button and click on it. Looking over that special offer, you'll be able to see all of the enormous features. It's an amazing offer, and I'm really excited about it myself. Particularly, if you look down there, you'll see he's going to reveal the top 10 secrets to make every webinar really successful. And achieve peak performance was the words that he used, and I thought that was great. So you'll see that it's very comprehensive and it's really exciting. So if you haven't done that, take a look right now at that page. Take a look at that special offer, and if you want to take advantage of that now, then scroll to the top of the page, find the Add to Cart button, and click that Add to Cart button. And then the rest is easy. Just fill in the form and click the Submit button, and you'll be on your way. So there's a few questions that I've been getting from the audience here, and I want to ask you these and see what you can offer here, because there are questions that I know I have, and there's way too many for us to get covered. But we'll just we'll take a gander at some of these. So, how many people are really making a decent amount of money using this kind of an approach?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the things that I've thought about as part of the answer to that question, now that you've asked it, is very simple. I mean, we've had so many people come to us asking, how do we do webinars? And we've been just thrilled by the number of people who have come through webinar graduate school and then later write back to us and tell us how successful they've been. So a lot of the students who come through webinar graduate school are definitely having success with this. And just by the sheer volume of people who are buying these type of tools, I know that there's a lot of other consumers who are doing the same out there.
Well, that's wonderful. I know that everybody's always worried about the idea that somebody's making claims, and it sounds like you've got a lot of successful students and others that you know that are doing this. So the next one is a very typical question. Will there be help available if I need it?
Yes, absolutely. Again, the monthly webinars that we do, the ability for you to submit questions so that you can get answers on those monthly webinars, and we always make ourselves available during those times so that you can come to us with your questions, and we'll work with you through that venue. So yes, there'll be help available in that regard, and that's not going to be a problem there.
That's great. So then there's another one. I guess this is a little bit of repetition here, but someone's really with an emphasis underlined. Can I really do this? I mean, I've seen so many claims of systems to help me create value and make money from my knowledge. Will this really work?
I think that it can really work, and looking back on all the people who've come to us from all the different backgrounds, all the different market niches that have come to us, asking us, show us how to do a webinar. and looking at the success that they've created, absolutely. Just to give you an example, we launched a webinar a few years ago. It was in late June. We launched it in late June, but we actually came up with the idea about the second week in June. And we gave ourselves about 21 days, maybe a little bit less than that, but we gave ourselves 21 days to put together the whole thing, which includes the branding, all the marketing, the web page, the offer, the shopping cart, everything. We had it up and running in about 21 days. Now, I know what you're thinking if you're hearing that. That sounds like a lot of work. Can I do that myself? Absolutely. Can I do it with a team? Absolutely. So if you don't know how to do some of these things, we will show you how you can actually surround yourself with a team, and for just a few hours of work, this entire team can do all of that work for you and get it done faster than if you tried to do it yourself, and also better than if you tried to do it yourself.
Well, the better part, there would be no doubt, because there's certainly things that I don't know how to do, and I'm sure many people in the audience are thinking the same thing. I guess one of the things that would occur to me and would be, sure, it's easy to pay people to do whatever if you want to spend a lot of money, but if you wanted to have a team help you do something, to do it well and do it faster than you could, is it going to be cost prohibitive to have someone help me produce a webinar in my niche?
Absolutely not. It's actually very easy to do. There's a number of different levels of ways that you can work with team members. I'm looking at probably 2 to 3 hours, paying someone maybe $15 to $20 an hour. That's not bad. And,
no, not at all.
And the product that you're going to sell on the back end is probably going to be worth 3 or 4 times that. So.
Well, that sounds incredibly exciting. So there's a question here that you talked about writing, and the question here is, I see that you're also an author. We talked about you sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and you talked about your love of birds and how you've turned that passion into safaris to Africa, which wouldn't have been where my mind immediately went. About my bird watching took me to Africa. That might be the title of the book. My bird watching took me to... Anyway, so the question is, I see you're an author. Do I need a book to make this work?
Absolutely not. What you need is a platform, and that's all you need. So think about this. You might want to ask yourself, how did the President of the United States get elected to office? It's very simple. He ran on a platform. Everywhere he went, he spoke about that platform, and that's how he got elected into office. Same thing with the webinar. When you do a webinar, you're going to have your own platform around the product or service that you sell. Just to use an example, my book helps connect inner city kids to nature and the outdoors. How do you do that? Well, there's a 5-step process. I came up with it. There's a 5-step process that I created of how to connect inner city kids to nature and the outdoors. That's my platform. And everywhere that I go, I talk about that. And what's interesting is I was selling my book 18 months before it ever appeared in publication for the very first time. So for 18 months, I was actually taking credit cards, checks, and cash for a book that didn't even exist, but people were buying it based on the platform. So the book always can come later, but as long as you have the platform, and we help you create that, by the way, as long as you have the platform, you can do webinars today. And I'll even go one step further. If you're watching this or listening to this right now, and you're thinking, I want to get started right now, put down on that piece of paper that you want to get your first webinar done in 30 days. We'll show you how to get there.
So that sounds really incredible. Actually, I know that lots of people are thinking about their busy lives and about how they don't have time to fit in any more stuff, and this sounds like some pipe dream, but you keep repeating over and over again, time frames. Put down the date you want to have your first webinar, and selling a book 18 months before it's out, and successfully then delivering on those expectations, and having your first one done in 30 days. In the example of your client from January to March, are all obviously successful stories that build a sense of confidence in me just listening to you that this is all doable. So I know there probably isn't a single answer to this, but what is the most difficult thing that gets in people's way of successfully, let's say they decide they want to do it. All right, I'm in, they jump. What's the biggest problem that gets in people's way of becoming successful?
That's a very easy answer. It might sound like a complex question, but it's very easy. The number one problem, the number one barrier to success in any business is simply knowing where to start. And what we do with the core module number 1 at Webinar Graduate School is we show you where to start and also how to start.
Showing me where to start. Well, that's great. So now I'm going to finally reveal to you, friends, about how to get your free thank you gift. So go to the speaker page. In case you haven't seen that yet already, excuse me, it's located at www.resultswithkellen.com/PassionQuest, PASSIONQUEST. And to get your thank you gift, you need to go to the special offer page. So go click the big orange button and go to the special offer page. And I know that you've been there already, but if you haven't, that's where you go, is click that button. Then you scroll all the way down until you find the big box with the red dotted lines around it that says John C. Robinson's thank you gift. Fill in your name and your email address and click the send button. And automatically, we'll get you your free thank you gift on the way. Now, for those of you that joined the interview late and missed some of what we've spoken about, there will be a replay. We'll put it up here in just a few minutes after we're done, and it will be up for 72 hours. Now, if you want to share this powerful information and this good opportunity with others, and then in that time frame, please do send them to www.resultswithkellen.com so that they too can participate in this. Now, for those of you that joined this interview late, that'll be a great place to hear the rest of it and to get full advantage of it or to share with it. Now, if you haven't already done so, now is the time to take advantage of this incredible special offer at this exclusive 90% discount that John has put together especially for you today. So go to the special offer page, scroll to the top, and click on the Add to Cart button. And the rest is easy. Just fill in the form and click the Submit button, and be sure and take advantage of this 90% offer. You need to do this so that you too can get started right away on your webinars. Friends, thank you for listening to this interview today. John, thank you for all of the teaching that you've done and the value that you've added to our guests today.
You are welcome. I was glad to be here.
All right. Well, you know, we've come to the end of our time, and I have a whole page of questions here still, but we'll have to wait for that for another time. Bye for now, friends.